Life as a teenager is pretty crazy, especially nowadays when information can move incredibly quickly and it can be hard to make so many decisions all at the same time. You throw in hormones, college, drama, all of that teenage stereotypical bullshit that we all either love or hate. And just being a teenager is a lot. And at the same time, you're supposed to grow into who you're gonna be as a person. And when it comes to decision making, although you might make a bunch of decisions, there might not be any rhyme or reason to it, and you might not have a system of learning from the decisions you make, whether those be right or wrong. And that's pretty important. You see, it all comes kind of under the umbrella of self-development. In high school, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to learn from them, and you're going to develop your character. Throughout high school, throughout life, eventually, that's all going to culminate into a hopefully sane and wise human being. Although, most of the time, that doesn't happen. A lot of people go through their lives just without any meaning, purpose, philosophy, any of that, and they just keep making the same mistake over and over again. That's why, for me, in my life, I have found self-development in the form of books, meditation, all that wonderful shit to be super important to me. I started out in the 8th grade with a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and you can kind of incorporate the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad into that as well. And since then, I've been constantly reading self-help books, each one of them building my character and making my decision-making a little bit better. But I'm not here to talk about any specific book. Today, I want to talk about self-development in high school as a whole. And before I get into that, if you guys could please drop a like down there, comment, and subscribe. All of that stuff really helps out the channel. And without further ado, let's just get into it. But before we get into any of this, let's define our terms here. What is self-development and what is character? Because self-development is building character, forming structures, decision-making processes, values, principles, and moral ethics all into one person slowly advancing and becoming more complex over time, which all culminates together into your character. Because your character is who you are, what makes you you, what do you think is right and wrong? Do you get up every day with a positive mental attitude, or do you just sit in bed for 20 minutes dreading your existence? Everything is a part of your character, and the goal of self-development is to improve and build upon yourself. A lot of people kind of think they're fine, they don't need to develop themselves, but let's use the analogy of having a dirty windshield on a car. You kind of get used to it after a while. You're looking through at the road, the cars are passing by, you could dodge a deer if you had to, but when you run through the car wash and the windshield gets cleaned, everything is so much clearer and better, and you're like, oh my god, how was I driving like that 30 minutes ago? Well, over time, that's what self-development proves to do to individuals. To not put any focus into self-development, not only in high school, but in life, you run the risk of misliving. That is, on your deathbed, when you look back, you're gonna say, shit, shouldn't have done all of that. And you don't gotta wait that long. You could leave high school and look back and say, shit, I did all of that wrong in hindsight. But had you taken a moment, developed yourself, looked ahead a little bit, and made better decisions, that won't happen. You'll look back and you'll say, I rocked that. I did awesome. I handled that situation perfectly, or maybe I didn't handle it perfectly, but I was able to learn from it, and I did the best that I could from where I was in that point in time, and now I will do better in the future. All of this stuff just leads to a happier, more fulfilled life. But, asterisks on that, happiness and fulfillment are things that you don't really get to understand until you've built yourself up a little bit. You see, some people might define happiness as a raging party, drugs and dopamine and all of that stuff going on, and other people might define happiness as posting a YouTube video and one person comments saying that it made their day just a little bit better. It's a different perspective. It's a different view on the world, and trust me, it is better to look on forward seeking fulfillment than just short-term happiness. I can make a whole other video about that. In fact, I will, so you should subscribe if you want to see it. But there's a bunch of philosophical stories and old Roman stuff. This is a constant issue in life, and there's many modern applications to it as well. So I'll make another video about that, but let's get on with the video. So in one overly complicated and long sentence, self-development is learning what goals to set, how to set those goals, how to take the actions to achieve those goals, how to look back and learn from the results of your actions, and how to use all of that knowledge and experience to look ahead and set new goals and repeat the process, while at the same time building up your character and who you are outside of the actions you're actually taking, improving your happiness and productivity, and all of that jazz, creating deeper connections between yourself and those around you. That might not have been too simple. I'm sorry if that wasn't too simple. I have been rambling a little bit in this video, but let me know in the comment section down below how my vernacular has been, how I've been speaking. So we kind of, hopefully, if I did a half-decent job in that last part, know what self-development is, but why do we care about self-development? Why should you, as a teenager in specific, care about self-development? And God, there is just a laundry list of reasons. Be sure to stick to the end of the video. I'm gonna kind of go over the beginnings of self-development, kind of just like dipping your toe into it. But hear me out as to why. Important to know going through this that there are kind of two personality types in high school. You have the egomaniac and the deeply insecure victim, and both could take a lot of self-development. Obviously, this is a dichotomy and it is two extremes. But on the egomaniac side, they think they are the best. They think they have nothing to learn. They will rule on in life. And then you have the insecure victim, and they think the world is out to get them, and they won't be anything, and all those insecurities and stuff. But taking the first actions into the broad term that is self-development, that's going to start to erode that stress and anxiety or that ego, so that often the ego is kind of just covering up more stress and anxiety. So in the end of the day, it's all the same shit. This can help get rid of your stress and anxiety. And believe me, it is simple, but it is not easy. So let me try and make a case for you as to why you should go down this path. Starting off with the early reasons here, self-development is going to help you deal with those challenges you're inevitably going to face in high school and life. Whether a party goes south, you get wrapped up in a bad group of friends, you have to study really late at night for an exam, something in the moment in the hallways, you see some bullying and something goes wrong, or a teacher catches you cheating, because let's be real, we all cheat. Self-development is going to teach you how to act in those high-stress situations so that you can make the right call, and you won't freeze up, and you won't get super angry, and you won't go to any extreme. You'll just know, this is who I am, this is how I handle situations, I have prepared for this, and I will handle the situation the best I possibly can. To not develop yourself is to run the risk of doing one of those extreme things that I just rattled off, and trust me, the satisfaction of handling a high-stress moment perfectly is immense, especially when other people are looking around at you and they just have this look of awe at you, like, oh my God, I couldn't have done that. And I don't mean that in a vain way. I don't mean that in a you need everyone's satisfaction way. But once you start to go down this path, others will look at you and say, holy shit, you were just miles ahead of me and everyone else. How do I do it? And then part of your journey, almost like AA, where like the addict sponsors the other addict, the person who develops themselves might be able to take someone else under their wing. And then all of a sudden, the human race as a whole is getting better because of you. But that might be a lot of stress. Let's just focus on you for now. Like I just hinted to, another reason that you might want to develop yourself is to get an early head start. If you're one of those academic nerds who is head in the books, just trying to do their best, get into their Ivy League school, be the best at your sport, or go to your trade school and open up the best business afterwards, whatever you're trying to do, developing yourself is going to open your eyes to a world of possibilities and allow you to excel in just everything you do. Anything you set your eyes on and you want to achieve, you'll be able to achieve it and then some, compared to the average undeveloped individual. And this isn't a knock to people who don't develop themselves. Many people will live lives perfectly happy and fine without ever thinking about themselves at all. They are just naturally born with the gift of stress management and happiness and power to them. But you know deep down whether you are or are not one of them. And wouldn't everyone just want to be a little bit happier, or a little bit smarter, or a little bit sharper, just a little bit better at everything? And then over time, this just compounds and builds on itself exponentially. So if you start in high school, by the time you're in college, you're already so much higher. Some kids are only getting started, and you're only going to accelerate at a faster pace. The earlier you start, the better. And high school is the perfect time because it is filled with non-stop daily challenges. And those challenges, when viewed with the right lens, can help build on yourself, can help you develop yourself instead of weighing you down. A lot of asterisks with mistakes nowadays is that a lot of them are recorded. You send that risky text or photo, or you quit or yell or get in an argument or say a bad word, and all of a sudden the internet will see it forever. One comment on some random YouTube video you left when you were 6 in 2008 trying to be edgy could come back and haunt you when you run for president. This is the world we live in, and for this reason I think minimizing mistakes and kind of risk management on the side of what you put out there into the internet is super important. Of course, I say this as I just put everything out on the internet, but the point is there. You run a high risk of making drastic mistakes out of nothing if you don't kind of do this self-development thing, if you don't know who you are. Because the little mistakes, although they're little, long term, if something comes back to bite you, because like I said, everything is recorded, that's gonna suck. Especially when you know, damn it, if I'd just been a little bit more mature, I wouldn't have done that in the first place. This entire mess that has been caused now could have been avoided if I was just a little bit more mature in the past. And that's why starting self-development today can be crucial. And the final point here is to kind of give your life some purpose. The struggle of a lot of high school students is they don't know what they want to do. They don't know what they want to major in, what clubs they want to partake in, what friends they want to have. And overall, there's just no purpose. And I'm not promising that self-development is going to be some godsend that's just going to be super easy and you're just going to like read a single book and be the best ever. But it can give you a new perspective, and it can almost let you know that it's okay not to have everything figured out before it actually teaches you what you want to do. Because only you can figure out what you want to do. You can't read a book about self-development that's going to tell you what you want to develop towards. That's on you to figure out. But you'll never get there if you don't start. So, giving your life that purpose to develop yourself and kind of foregoing those super long-term goals, especially when we don't really know what's going to happen in the next 5 minutes, let alone the next 5 years, although I do love long-term thinking and planning, it's something to keep in mind. And infusing that purpose into your life, if you have a bunch of anxiety or stress about not knowing what you want to do with your life, it's going to help out a lot, and it's going to feel like a new you. I mean, doesn't it suck to be in the chaotic high school environment, things moving a million miles a minute? You don't really know how to make sense of it because you don't really have any philosophy or structure to your mind. You're just kind of there, a little overwhelmed. We've all been there. It's high school. Whether you're a freshman or senior, you'll probably feel like that tomorrow, especially during Corona time. So handling the chaos when you have a structure to process information and think, it's a lot easier than just getting flooded with information and having no idea how to handle it. Because some people's parents are great and they taught them that, but a lot of people's parents aren't so great and they have no idea. So let books and articles and YouTubers, not me, I am not some self-development coach, but other ones, like the ones I'm going to recommend later in this video, let them fill the roles that your parents might not have growing up, if you're in that unlucky situation. I spoke about dealing with the chaos, and I want to talk about one of the effects of the chaos of, life with stress and anxiety. And while I have never ever really been one to stress, and I have had very little anxiety in my life, I do know about it. I've done research about it, and I don't want to sound egotistical, and I know that I really cannot relate to someone with true and genuine depression or stress or anxiety. But when it comes to this whole self-development game, stress and anxiety can be wiped out. You see, when you start to build character, when you start to develop yourself, when you adopt a life philosophy, what happens is you start to form structure in your mind. So all that wishy-washy, negative, foggy stuff that's going on, if you're stressed or depressed or like have those hormonal things going on in your mind, you start to slowly make sense of them. The fog slowly lifts, and that can be an invigorating experience, especially for people who might not even remember when the fog wasn't there. Not to mention the fact that anxiety is often fear of the unknown in one way or the other. So when you start to formulate that structure, get to know yourself, then now there isn't as much unknown about yourself, and once you change the way you see the world, there's less unknown there as well. You're going to change things like where you derive value from, what makes you happy, where do you focus all of your energy, and when you do all of that and you kind of bring it more towards yourself, you become more intrinsically motivated, then that's going to help your anxiety. You can kind of think of self-development as therapy for yourself. You're not going to a therapist because some people don't like going to a therapist. And you're not paying some professional a lot of money, but you're taking the time to get to know yourself, to kind of diagnose yourself, which may or may not be a good idea. Talk to a therapist. I don't know. It's legal disclaimer. People say them all the time on YouTube. There's mine. But you get the point. Being your own therapist, developing yourself, and dealing with all of that negative stuff. Now, if you are genuinely, bad off, then go to a therapist. Do it the right way. But there are a lot of parallels between cognitive behavioral therapy and therapy and self-development books, stoicism, Christianity, etc., etc. Another big reason for this is if you go up and down with your hormones, if you have really good times and really sad times, almost like you're just constantly swinging back and forth day by day, then what can happen is when you develop yourself with a sober mind and you think ahead into the future of how you're going to deal with certain situations, by the time you get to those points that you're at either one of those extremes, you're going to have trained yourself how to deal with that. You're going to remember and be able to go back to a better time, a less extreme time. And overall, you're going to eventually just start to even yourself out. And it might be at the sacrifice of the super high energetic highs, but for a lot of reasons, it's really not too bad. And it's really not too big of a sacrifice. Because a lot of those upper levels of energy and happiness and short-term joy are just that, short-term joy, and won't really lead to long-term fulfillment, which is, again, another video. But the point is made by developing yourself, gaining a different perspective on the world, putting the work in. You're going to be able to control your hormones. You're going to be able to have less stress and anxiety in your life, and you're just going to be a better person. You're just going to be better off. I know I'm speaking in a lot of generalities, almost like I'm about to pitch you a book. I swear I'm not. But that being said, self-development, just getting started can do a lot of things. Just kind of turning that camera that we have on the world inwards and working there instead of doing random homework that doesn't even matter, just busy work or judging some random person over there. Just figuring all us out before we figure everything else out. That's what high school can be used for. I want to talk about a few ways briefly that you can kind of dip your toes into this. I'm going to have more videos coming out about this on my channel. But there are a few ways. You can just go a self-development book, whether it's The Secret or You Are a Badass or Think and Grow Rich. There's a bunch of them out there. You can just read a single book. It might not have all of life kind of in one topic, but you're going to be able to read that, work on it, work on what it says, think about what it says, maybe read another one, and just kind of bounce around and do it yourself. Self-development is basically what that is. It's actually I just came up with that on the spot. I like that. Do it yourself, self-development. When you read a bunch of self-help books, a lot of the times it can get kind of repetitive. The advice can be basically the same thing. Just reading reviews for the books that you read, or taking into account where you get the recommendations for those books from. It can all kind of help stop that, and most of it is a good message. You're not gonna get harmed by reading a very similar good self-help book twice, but there can be a little bit of redundancy. It's kind of how I got started with the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, although it does have a very wide perspective, life and business and family and all of this stuff, so I would kind of put the 7 Habits somewhere in the middle of just do it yourself and a whole on life philosophy. But speaking of life philosophies, that is certainly an option. You can look into a specific author or a specific religion or a specific ancient philosophy, whether it be Stoicism or Christianity or Buddhism, or a book like The 7 Habits, or a blog like Mark Manson's blog and his books, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck and Everything is Fucked. You can kind of look into these people or subjects or things that kind of encompass all of life, and there's a few pros and cons there. So one of the biggest cons, just to get that out of the way, is that it can make you rigid. If not everything applies to you from that specific philosophy, do know that it's okay to deviate and do it yourself for a little bit of the process. But the convenience factor of minimizing redundancy, knowing that someone else has the whole picture in mind, even if you're still working it out, even if you're still applying it to yourself, just knowing that there is the big picture, that if you were having a specific trouble, you could go to this blog and look it up, or this philosophy and find an article about it. That's a very comforting feeling that I personally like. I've been falling in love with Stoicism recently. And religion or the Boy Scouts or a lot of different things can kind of fall into this role. I think the Boy Scouts is a unique example. It's borderline religious, and they teach young boys a lot of great things that it is many ways just self-development, and Christianity teaches self-development through the church, through other events. I'm personally not Christian whatsoever, and I have my own issues with organized religion, but on a very micro scale with your local church pastor, I don't know, it works. It is a form of self-development, and if that is the path that you want to go down, then power to you, dude. Do it. So I've been rambling on long enough. Without further ado, I'm just gonna ramble on a couple of books that I would recommend. We have Everything is Fucked, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Rich Dad Poor Dad, Think and Grow Rich. Let's look at my library back there. Tim Ferriss, The 4-Hour Work Week, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Again, if I didn't already say that, phenomenal book. Success Through a Positive Mental Attitude. We have something that I think is interesting. Biographies work super well for this entire thing. If you just read someone else's biography, maybe they're a little bit similar to you, maybe they're doing something that you want to do, you can pick up life lessons from them, see their flaws from a third person perspective, see if maybe you have those flaws. I did that with Alexander Hamilton. And then we have The Secret, and really any book kind of in your business sphere. Like, if you're interested in business, then there's going to be a million self-help books for you out there, and you've really got to do your own research. Down in the description, I always have links to books that I love, and they're going to be down there in this video alongside everything else, and you should leave a comment and subscribe while you're down there. Without further ado, my name is Bianchi. This has been Define Wisdom, and I hope you guys just kind of start working on your own shit. Get your shit together. Come on. I know you. I have faith in you guys.